Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another episode of After the Buzzer, the show where I recap the NBA games from the night. We just had Game 4 of Boston versus Cleveland, and more importantly in this video, Dallas versus Oklahoma City. This is a series that has been so much fun and very stressful for me, again, as I've said a number of times here on the channel as a diehard Thunder fan. I recently talked about how the Mavericks went ahead and stole Game 2 in Oklahoma City, as well as really put together a great performance in Game 3 and looked terrifying to go ahead and take a 2-1 series lead in a recent video. So if you want to hear my thoughts on the series up to this point, go ahead and check that out. But let's get into Game 4, and it's one that didn't look great for the Thunder to go ahead and start off. A lot of people thinking that OKC was going to kind of crumble under the pressure. They were going to go ahead and go down 3-1 going back to Oklahoma City for Game 5, and if you were someone who believed that, you probably felt pretty vindicated. By the beginning of this game, the Thunder have been prone to these slow starts here in the playoffs, specifically in this series, and the Mavericks took a big lead early. In the first quarter, they went up by as much as 14 points, were kind of running away with it. Thunder couldn't get anything to go. The three-point shots specifically were not falling. Basically, if Shai wasn't generating offense, nothing was happening, and this pretty much continued the entire first half. The Thunder would bring it back a little bit. They brought it back within 5 points once, but for a majority of the first half, they were right around double digits. A lot of 8-point leads, 9-point leads, 10-point leads. A lot of it was timely threes and just big buckets. Again, it's PJ Washington. I hope I never have to watch the Thunder play PJ Washington again after this series. He has continued to just decimate us at almost every turn. Derrick Jones Jr. was also really good in the first half. Daniel Gafford getting some buckets too. The Mavericks were just making things happen, and the Thunder's offense was not coming together. This Mavericks defense has been so good. Give them a lot of credit for the way they've played in this series. They've really lived up to the new expectations that they have on that defensive end with the addition of PJ Washington, with Luka trying to become a better defender, Kyrie defending his butt off, Derrick Jones Jr. growing into that role, the bigs, the shot blocking. They went ahead and had, I think, 9 blocks. Yeah, 9 blocks in the first half alone. They were just decimating anything at the rim the Thunder tried to get going, and this is a team that really likes to get downhill. Shai in particular, the three-point shots weren't falling, and yet because the Mavericks were missing a bunch of their free throws and they were turning the ball over quite a bit, the Thunder kept it at least within striking distance going into halftime. At the break, it was a 11-point lead. I believe the Mavericks hit a big shot towards the end of the buzzer. They've just managed to do that a number of times in this series to go ahead and give them that lead going into halftime. Not the ideal spot for the Thunder to be in, but it could have been a lot worse with how they were looking in the first half. And out the gate in the third quarter, they built it up again. They went up 14 once again within the first 2 minutes of the third, and it seemed like the Thunder may just never push all the way back. But one guy who refused to say die the entire night was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. If you know me, I have been one of the biggest defenders of Shai the entire time he's been a member of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Ever since he got traded here and had that great first season alongside Chris Paul and Dennis Schroeder and the guys, I've been saying that Shai is going to be an all-star, eventually an all-NBA level player, and pretty soon after his first few games as the number one option going into the year following that, I saw him as a future MVP level player. He has reached that point. He's been all-NBA first team once, obviously going to get it again here this year after finishing second in the MVP race. Shai is incredibly special, and yet with all the stuff that Shai's accomplished already in the regular season, there are a lot of people that want to see him prove it in the playoffs. And I mean, I get that, you want to see players perform on the biggest stage, but many people were expecting Shai to crumble, saying that because he wouldn't get a good whistle, because he wouldn't get as many free throws, that Shai wouldn't be very good in the playoffs, that the Thunder were going to fall apart and shrink because of him not living up to his regular season play. Well, through the early going in the playoffs, he's not only done that, and this game was the best game that Shai has played in his playoff career. This was honestly one of the best individual games I have ever seen from a Thunder player, and the Thunder have had some insane talents. Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, Paul George, amongst others. Chris Paul was here for that 1 year as well. Shai even had a 30-piece of his own back in that first season with the Thunder. The OKC Thunder have had some insane talents. Even James Harden. This was one of the best. I'm saying it was the best, but one of the best and most dominant individual performances I've ever seen from a Thunder player. In the first half, Shai kept the Thunder almost single-handedly alive with 12 points, 5 of 9 shooting. He went 2 of 2 from the line, 3 boards. And then in the second half is really when everything exploded for him. In the third quarter, the Thunder brought it back a little bit. By the end of the period, they were only down a few, and that was because of Shai, who just basically said, I'm going to empty the clip. I'm the superstar. I'm going to be aggressive. I'm going to knock down the most insane mid-range jumpers you've ever seen. And he had 12 points alone in the third quarter. The Thunder as a whole only had 22, so he had over half of those on 5 of 11 shooting, 2 rebounds, a dime, a steal, and a block. No turnovers, which would continue to be a theme for the entire night. He was making the right plays, he was making the right reads, and just being the unstoppable offensive force that he is. And in the fourth quarter, when the Thunder not only brought it back even further, but eventually took the lead and went on to win this game despite being down 14 and playing pretty terribly the entire night, Shai went ahead and stepped up even more, 10 points, 3 rebounds. The Mavericks started to send some more pressure, so 4 assists as well, a steal and a block. Once again, no turnovers on 57% shooting. He was dominant, and that's to say the least. There was one stretch where he scored 8 straight points on just insane bucket after insane bucket, fading mid-range after fading mid-range, with one coming basically behind the backboard. There's one angle I'll try and show y'all here where it doesn't feel like that shot should be mathematically possible when you look at the angle, but he still found a way to go ahead and make it happen. If you take a look at his shot chart, he dropped a very efficient 34 points tonight in the win with only mid-range jumpers. He didn't score at the rim once. He had like a couple little floater push shot type things, but he didn't hit a single three, didn't make a single bucket at the rim, which Shai is known for, getting downhill and finishing around the bucket. It was 14 mid-range jumpers that willed the Thunder to this victory, heavily contested. It didn't matter if it was PJ Washington or Derrick Jones Jr. or Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, one of the bigs over their outstretched arms. Shai was cooking anybody and everybody, and he kept the Thunder in this game. He willed them over the edge to finish with 34 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks on 52% shooting. If Shai was anything less than unstoppable tonight, the Thunder do not win this game. They don't even get close. They get blown up by like 20 plus points, but Shai literally willed this team to victory. This is what superstars do. This is what guys who finish top 5 in MVP races do. This is what players who are franchise guys do in these big time moments. Shai has always been someone who has risen up to the challenge, has performed under the biggest expectations. He's doing so again. I don't know why anybody ever thought that an unstoppable force attacking the rim, whose counter is just one of the most unstoppable mid-range jumpers in the entire sport, I don't understand why people thought that guy was going to shrink in the playoffs. It never made sense to me. And as a whole, in the second round alone, by the way, Shai is averaging 31.8 points per game, 9.8 rebounds. He's really stepped up on the boards, 7 dimes per game. He's playmaking at an extremely high level, 2.8 blocks, 48.4% from the field, 45.5% from deep, and 91.4% from the line, which I'm sure people are going to bring up the free throws in the comments tonight. Only 6 free throws. And he, of course, knocked them all down. It was just mid-range buckets. He was also, again, dishing out to his teammates. Even though guys weren't hitting shots, Shai continued to trust them. He's a great leader as well. There was one possession where he got like 2 offensive rebounds, and Lu Dort missed like back-to-back wide-open threes. Later in the game, he trusted him again, and he knocked down the next 2 3-point shots. Jalen Williams really struggling tonight, 5 of 19 from the floor for just 14 points. But in the fourth quarter, when the Thunder needed him most, he stepped up, grabbed 9 boards overall in the night, 6 assists, 4 steals. And in the fourth quarter alone, he had a huge and one, had a huge dunk as well in transition, finished with 7 points on 3 of 7 shooting. He stepped up. Chet Holmgren, unbelievable stuff from him. He finished with a ridiculous game overall defensively. I think there was some stat I saw, I believe it was on NBA TV after the game, that Mavericks players were 1 for 14 when defended by Chet tonight. I can't verify that. I don't remember many guys scoring when Chet was around them, but 18 points, 9 rebounds, 4 blocks, and a steal. 6 of 9 shooting from the floor, 1 of 2 from 3. Should have had 2, but his foot was just barely on the line on 1. And the 3 that he hit was a massive moment. He iced the game at the free throw line too when we needed him to do that. Shai, of course, does so as well, getting the final 2 free throws to make it a 4-point game, which was the ultimate deficit that the Thunder won by, 100-96. Another game where the Thunder defense holds the team under 100, and they go ahead, bring this one back to 2-2. It took a little bit of everybody in the team to make this one happen. Also, Cason Wallace, 2 of 2 from downtown, 6 points, ridiculous defense on Kyrie Irving down the stretch. Queso is extremely special. Happy that he got his flowers from a lot of people on social media tonight. Everybody did their part in some way or another, but the Thunder don't even get close to this if Shai isn't the guy that he is. I don't understand how people can't realize how special of a player he is. Again, I don't understand how people thought he was just going to stop being one of the best players in basketball when he got to the playoffs with a game that is clearly made for it. Having that mid-range jumper is one of the most valuable tools in the playoffs, and he just goes ahead and torches the Mavericks. He was great against the Pelicans as well. Shai is performing at an extremely high level in his first ever playoffs as the number 1 option. Some people thought with the inexperience the Thunder had, Shai would also play into into that a little bit, never having been a number one option in a playoff run, that he might struggle a little bit, that his numbers might go down. He's only gotten better. He's been extremely dominant. He's also been great defensively at moments. In this game, there was one play down the stretch where PJ Washington tried to back him down off the dribble. Shai goes ahead and just stonewalls him, gets the stop. It was a huge moment, and the Thunder go ahead and get a win. Shai has been the best player in this series. The Thunder aren't tied if Shai hasn't been easily the best player in this series so far. He's definitely done that, and they're going to need him to continue to be, because this thing isn't over. When I made the video last time talking about the Mavericks, saying that it was a 2-1 lead for them, I said it wasn't over. This is going to be a dogfight the rest of the way. Someone's going to win in 6 or 7. I don't know who. Of course, I'm pulling for the Thunder, and that was my official prediction, is Thunder in 6. But it's hard to predict with a series that's been as insane as this. Really, the playoffs as a whole have been so incredible so far. We've got 3 second-round series. They're currently tied 2-2, and the Celtics are up 3-1. We'll talk about them and the Cavaliers in a moment. But overall, the Thunder did their job. They took back home court advantage. It's a best 2 out of 3 now, with 2 of those 3 games being played in Oklahoma City. I expect them to get the job done in Game 5. Maybe this goes 6. Maybe it goes 7. I'm not really sure. But what I do know is that the Thunder are going to need Shai to continue to be the best player in the series to have the best chance at winning. I think he'll continue to do that. He's just establishing himself as more and more of a superstar, one of the faces of the league on this national stage. And I'm glad people that thought that Shai was going to shrink are realizing how wrong they were. Because if you were one of the people who heard that or said that, you were lied to, or you were lying to other people. And again, I'm sure there are people that are in the comments going to say, oh, nobody said this. This was half my comments throughout the season. Anytime I tweet about Shai being good, they'd be like, oh, let's see him do it in the playoffs. Here's him doing it in the playoffs. As for the Mavericks, it really came down to, for the most part, free throw shooting. They were 12 of 23 from the line. Meanwhile, the Thunder were 23 of 24. They only got 1 more free throw shot, and they hit 11 more. It was a disastrous effort from the Mavericks, especially with PJ Washington missing a big one down the stretch, as well as Luka Doncic trying to cut into the deficit to go ahead and make it a 1-possession game, give them another chance. They just weren't able to knock down those shots. And as a whole, their star backcourt of Luka and Kyrie were really rough in this one. Luka just 18 points. He did finish with a triple-double, 12 and 10, but had 7 turnovers and was 6 of 20 from the floor. It was a really rough game for Luka Doncic. I did have some big moments, and he was orchestrating the offense really well in terms of playmaking. He always is going to do that, but I just felt like he was forcing it a little bit. He wasn't really picking his spots well, and a lot of the shots that he typically knocks down just weren't falling. And it's weird because he looked a lot more mobile in this game. Like, it seemed like he was healthier than he usually was. I don't know if that's actually the case, of course, because I'm not Luka, but just in terms of watching his movement, it seemed like he was more right than he had been all series, just wasn't able to make the usual looks that he does. Kyrie Irving, just 4 of 11 shooting, really unaggressive as usual in the first half, and in the second half, the Thunder really keyed in on him, knowing that he's usually the guy that goes off in the second half. Only 9 points on the game, did have 9 assists, but had a turnover, 5 fouls. They need him to be more aggressive, I think, in the first half. They need both of them to really kind of figure this thing out, because with Kyrie and Luka playing like this, you're not going to win this series. Even though PJ Washington, again, was really good from 3, 5 of 11 for 21 points. Didn't shoot great as a whole from the field, just 36.8%. And as a team, they really struggled from the outside, 34%. Although, compare that to the Thunder's 25.9, it looks like they were snipers out there. The offense just kind of fell apart. Luka and Kyrie are the centerpieces of this thing, even though the role players can step up, and some of them did. If they're not getting anything from Luka and Kyrie, it's not going to be a series they can win. So I'm expecting Luka to bounce back a little bit. He never stays down for long. He's one of the best in the world. The question is it going to be enough to stop a Thunder team that now has a ton of momentum going into Game 5, and we're able to pull out a win with just awful shooting? If you show me these shooting splits of 38% from the field, 25.9% from deep, and 95.8% from the line, I don't think I would have told you the Thunder won this basketball game. They also got out-rebounded. They won somehow. I'll go ahead and take it. But yeah, this is one that the Mavericks should not have let slip away. And now that they did, it could really come back to bite them. If they lose this series, this is clearly the game that got away. Then to go ahead and wrap things up, we had Game 4 of Boston versus Cleveland, which was surprisingly close. And I say surprisingly because there was no Donovan Mitchell playing with a calf injury. For some reason, it feels like calf injuries are the thing that has really plagued a lot of the NBA over the course of these playoffs. It hits Donovan Mitchell, still no Jared Allen either due to that rib injury. It seemed like a scenario where the Celtics would go ahead and blow the Cavaliers out, but credit to them, they kept this thing close. Now they were down for basically the entire game, but Boston never built out a lead bigger than 15, and in the fourth quarter, they brought it back to within 5. Like, Darius Garland ends up putting up 30 points. Evan Mobley continues to have a pretty good series offensively, 8 of 13 from the field, 19 points, 15 from Max Strus, 19 from Karis LeVert. They brought it back, they made it close. Dean Wade hit a 3, and it felt like, hey, maybe the Cavs are going to make this thing interesting, but without Donovan Mitchell, just nobody to go ahead and close this thing down the stretch. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown with some big buckets at the end of the game. They each finished with a pretty good stat line. Brown 27, 8, and 1. Tatum 33 points, 11 boards, 5 assists, 2 steals, and a block on just under 50% shooting. They were really good, both of them. They put together great performances. You had 6 of 11 from Jrue Holiday, 4 of 8 from 3, another great game from him, and 3 steals as well, doing his typical defensive thing. Peyton Pritchard continues to play well off the bench, 9 points from Luke Cornett on 4 or 5 shooting. It wasn't pretty. You would like to see the Celtics get a blowout in this scenario, but a win's a win, and the playoffs are weird sometimes. Sometimes the team will be missing one of their best players and just put it together randomly. I mean, we saw that happen with the Timberwolves in Game 2 against the Nuggets. No DPOY, and they had one of the best defensive games we've ever seen. So just weird stuff going on over there, but the Celtics do go ahead and win, and they're up 3-1. I think they're going to win this one in 5. That's what I said, I believe, before the series. I think that was my official prediction with Celtics in 5. I, as usual, just don't really see any equal for the Celtics in the Eastern Conference right now. We'll see what happens when they make the finals, but for the moment, I do expect them to not lose very much throughout the rest of the East. Credit to the Cavaliers for putting up a fight in this one, but unless Donovan Mitchell comes back and they have a miraculous run all of a sudden, this series isn't going to last much longer. With all that being said, those are my thoughts on these games today. Let me know down below in the comments what your takeaways were. Also, who do you have winning each of these series? I'm assuming you're going to pick Boston. More so, let me know who do you have winning Thunder versus Mavericks. It's been really fun and cardiac arrest inducing as a Thunder fan. Let me know how it's been for you. If you're a neutral fan out there, I'm kind of curious to know, but for the moment, I appreciate you watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. Videos may be a little bit sparse over the next couple of days. It'll probably just be like one day that I miss because it's going to be my birthday on Wednesday, and I've got some other obligations as well. So just a quick heads up in case you're missing some of the videos or if there's not a recap a certain day. Keep that in mind. But for the moment, I appreciate you watching. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.